At the peak of my fame was the darkest period of my life. I was self-cutting. I had suicidal ideation.
How did it feel for you to be known at such young age before you had discovered who you were?
I was suddenly thrown into a world which was completely unfamiliar. And a world that branded me as glamorous creatures.
You heard the worst things about you. I'd heard that she does drugs, sleep.
You were a sex symbol or you were a model. So the labeling, it hit me really hard. I was begging people to try to see beyond the image.
I think that comes because of the fact that we did not embrace completely what the society expected us to. Because we had this internal fight, that perhaps led to different choices that we made in our careers and in our lives.
And I started rebelling slightly. So I chose like a dark, unconventional debut,
Kasoor.
which was Kasoor.
Yes.
And that was my way of rebelling.
Multiple myeloma. When you were diagnosed, it was a fatal illness. Did you ever question, why me?
Doctor literally had told me you have 5 years. There was just like a deeper knowing, a voice that said, you know, it's okay. It's not going to be easy, but you're going to get through this. The Buddhists have a beautiful way of putting it. They say it's the ripening of karma. It doesn't mean that it's a pleasant thing. It doesn't mean it's a sweet thing, but it means you are ready to handle it. So I kept myself in a healthy kind of mind space where I was, positive and a little bit delusional. I realized that the real journey with cancer began after I left the hospital. And that was the real healing journey because you're out of crisis, but how do you rebuild yourself?
What is the biggest takeaway from all this movement?
That everything you need is.
Today on the Aditi Govitrikar Show, we have Lisa Ray. Most of us know her as an actor, model, author, cancer survivor, mother, and one of the most recognizable faces of our generation. What fewer people know is that she recently co-founded NuHer, a science-led clinic in Mumbai dedicated to perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, and midlife women's health. Built on the belief that Indian women deserve far better than silence and suffering through one of the most significant transitions of her life. But this conversation is not about repeating the public story. It is about the woman behind the image, what that image cost her, and who she is today. Because a lot of women struggle with being seen, being known, being understood. This one is for all of you. So don't forget to watch this till the end. Welcome to the Aditi Govitrikar Show, Lisa.
I've been waiting for you to start your own show for a long time, Aditi. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Taking you back to, your childhood days. And I identify with this because we have a lot of overlaps, like we were chatting earlier.
Yeah.
How did it feel for you to be known at such young age before you had discovered who you were?
That was the enduring issue, like my internal issue that I carried with me, amongst other issues, of course. But I always struggled with identity issues. It was compounded by the fact that, I'm half Indian, half Polish, born in Toronto, landed in Bombay at 16. And we all have these really interesting, unique stories. You also are not from Bombay, right? So you landed also at a very young age.
Yes.
And so I think we both can relate to how disorienting it was and at the same time seductive as well, because here we are still so many years later. I didn't know who I was. Like that period of time, probably from 16 to probably 25, while your prefrontal cortex is still being formed, is, you might say, I think your foundational years. It's when you set the foundation of who you are and how you view the world and everything like that. And I was suddenly thrown into a world which was completely unfamiliar. And a world that branded me right from the get-go, right? And it was 1991. So it was a year when all of us who started in the industry, we were viewed obviously as glamorous creatures, but very unidimensional.
Yeah.
And we didn't have access to something like social media where you could actually share your point of view or share a little bit about who you were. So I think the 90s, as much as I'm a bit nostalgic about it, from the professional behind the scenes working point of view, we all had great relationships. It was less transactional than it is today, less pressure. At the same time, from the audience point of view, it was so uncompromisingly about labeling somebody. You know, you were a sex symbol or you were a model. Even just saying model in the 90s already brought up a lot of connotations. And you know what we forget today, where we are sitting here in 2026, is that modeling was not the profession that it is today. No. It wasn't considered that desirable. It was considered just slightly disreputable, right? Yes. Especially coming from, I think, again, we come from sort of these backgrounds that are very academically oriented. You know, my father was a scientist and he had his PhD. And so naturally that was the path that I was expected to take. Maybe not science, but certainly.
And being the only child, I think that must be a pressure too.
And being the only child was its own kind of pressure. So the labeling, it hit me really hard. And I was always, I think, during the height of my career, I was begging people to try to see beyond the image, which instead of maybe you might say cashing in on it. I never really did that, you know. I mean, I certainly had a good run of it in the 90s. But I was seeking out constantly projects or opportunities to be able to express the other sides of myself. And I did. I was doing that also in Bombay. I was organizing art events. You know, I was writing for myself. My social circle was not actually in the entertainment industry. It was like, I love hanging out with artists and writers and all the eccentric old Parsi men of Bombay who were like really interesting characters. I was always seeking out characters, you know, and fulfilling my version of living like a Hemingway-esque life. Because, you know, for me as a young woman, I actually aspired to be an artist, to move to Paris, not necessarily even to become a famous artist, but just to have all of those, that buffet of experiences, or to live, as Hemingway put it, this a movable feast, you know, how life should become this movable feast, or a city becomes a movable feast. And I found my movable feast actually in Bombay, because Bombay in the 90s was full of characters. It was really interesting. We were laying the foundation and the bricks and the mortar of what the city was to become, both in the modeling industry and advertising and entertainment and design and fashion, but also just in what it is to become like this maximum city. But I struggled for so many years. And I look back on it and I feel really sympathetic towards that girl who was begging so much to be taken seriously. And the irony, Aditi, is today, I don't take myself seriously. I don't take anything that seriously. I've been released from that self, and that criticism and that constant, like that internal critic.
So at that time, because when I started, you know, of course, we were in the same kind of situation. Was there a time when you said, okay, I'm going to own to who I am, looked at as by the world, or you never did?
That's a really good question. Did you? I'm just curious.
Well, I did. At one point, I said, okay, this is who I am. And this is what the world views me as. Let the Venn diagram, in my mind, I had that Venn diagram, you know, which was not matching. And not forget matching like this, it was far away. That caused a lot of friction in my mind. And that gave a lot of anxiety, which as a kid, I'm not an anxious person. But at that time, I went through that. And plus, for me, it was like, okay, medicine or modeling, medicine or acting, medicine or appearances. That was a different kind of friction that I went through.
No, exactly. Those are big choices, right? And there's a big gap between those choices, at least in terms of perceptions. But obviously, I had internalized expectations of myself from probably my family and background and also society in a sense. because I think the expectations for young women were so different when I was growing up. And remember, I came from Canada and I came from a very small, like Toronto, as much as it's a big city today, was actually quite small and conservative in those days. So we didn't have other options. So, to be thrown into a world that I never anticipated, which is why I still call myself an accidental actress, accidental everything, and it genuinely was an accident, really took me off my path. I feel that life was setting me up and teaching me from a young age to be able to disengage, to appreciate what was coming my way. Look, we're human.
Yeah.
Who doesn't appreciate certain opportunities, advantages, fame, a decent income as a young girl, financial independence. Of course, we appreciate all of that. But at the same time, it can go away in an instant and it does not fulfill you. Yeah. And I learned that right out of the gate because I was going through this other deep trauma, this unaddressed trauma with my family that ironically at the peak of my fame was the darkest period of my life. Yes. I was self-cutting. I had suicidal ideation. I felt deeply insecure. I did not feel that I matched up to anything. So that also was as big an internal struggle that I was going through. But in some sense, I'm thankful for it. I'm actually thankful for it because while some people might say you never maximized your opportunities, and from a strictly, you might say, conventional point of view.
I get that a lot.
I'm sure you get that because we were in very similar positions, right? Like I'm sure we had all the offers at a certain point of time, and there's a limited amount of time that you have the whole world.
But I think that comes because of the fact that we did not embrace completely what the society expected us to. Like the labels, because we had this internal fight that perhaps led to different choices that we made in our careers and in our lives, and that led to. But again, no regrets, right? I'm
no regrets.
The way it turned out. So
no regrets. Okay. I definitely don't regret it. But you're absolutely right because I never fully embraced what other people wanted me to be professionally as a model, sex symbol, actor, whatever it was. Yeah. I never fully embraced it, and I started rebelling slightly because when I finally, in that sense, decided that
rebelling against who or what?
Against, society's perceptions or the conventional path. Like, at one point it was like all the main Bollywood players at that time were offering me mainstream roles in films and I was expected to debut and all of this stuff was going on. And I waited and then I ended up choosing a very, a much more unconventional film to start with that spoke to me because I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this thing, and by that time I had spent enough time in the industry that I was curious, but I said, it has to be aligned with who I am. I mean, look, I love Govinda, but I could not gyrate along with Govinda. It's just not me. Yeah. And I did feel that I didn't want that maybe to be my legacy, looking back. So I chose like a dark, unconventional debut,
Kasoor.
which was Kasoor.
Yes.
And that was my way of rebelling. Because it was like, I was expected to play the pretty heroine, dancing along.
Would you say that whilst you were rebelling against the society, you were also rebelling against yourself at some point, which maybe led to, the disorders, which you've spoken about, the eating disorders and things like that? Do you think that was a fight with... that the rebellion was against yourself, you think?
I'm still honestly, Aditi, parsing it out, because my 20s, it was a mess.
We all?
it was a mess. And I think it's really important to admit that, accept that, acknowledge that again, the 20s are considered to be the height of a woman's powers because of youth, because of, certain opportunities that you're given, because of your looks, Yeah. It was just, I don't even understand completely. And I've kind of moved away from analyzing it in detail because I find that I get a little bit trapped into certain stories that I want to disengage myself from. Because ultimately, stories are what make and break us, the stories that we tell ourselves and that we tell others about ourselves. And so I was telling myself such dark stories about myself. Of course, I'm not good enough. I was anorexic, bulimic, many other things, because I think it was a control issue. And I was dealing also with the trauma, unprocessed trauma of the car accident. So many things were going on. Identity issues. And, and also not really finding my grounding in Bombay for a long time. Remember, I had no family, I had no support system. I had to create it myself from the ground up. And I was running away from myself. I was keeping super busy, but also then just avoiding sitting with myself. So what I elect to do today, and this is maybe more connected with, the systems of meditation that I've embraced, or the ways of like taking a more spiritual, zoomed out point of view. First of all,
more
of course,
of a bird's eye.
more for, of course, like looking at that girl, that version of myself with a lot more compassion and acceptance, but also not getting entangled in the stories that I told myself anymore. And as we said, as human beings, I have found out along the way, and it's been a long way, that disengaging from the stories has spelled a lot of freedom for myself. That's really the path of freedom that I'm following, even to today.
Yeah. I remember seeing this, the visual suddenly came to my mind as you were speaking about this tree that you had in your home. And I remember seeing it in a magazine.
Yeah.
And at that time, the thought that came to my mind was, here's a girl who loves nature and misses it.
How did you get that? Yes.
And it was those days when people didn't have murals and stuff like that in their homes. It was back like 20 years back, perhaps. So coming from Toronto to Mumbai, the city, the cacophony, and, of course, you appreciate the beauty of it, like you said. But did that get to you? And second part is, what did your mom or dad say to you when you said, okay, I'm going to go into modeling and acting?
So yes, I am very much a nature nymph. I need nature. I've realized that. And I think I was young when I came to Bombay. So I was seeking the excitement of the city. And I think that you quite naturally rebel against what you know when you're young. So I was kind of moving away from a much more, Canada is about nature. That's the primary attraction to Canada, vast, untamed nature that I spent most of my youth in. And the irony is, I moved away from that and now I'm coming all the way back and I realize how important it is to me. But I talk to trees. I communicate with nature. Nature communicates with me. That's always been there. I was too embarrassed to ever share that thought with anyone before.
But Lisa, there's an experiment which is it's a proven thing that so they had these pots of seeds which you had to sow, and you had to speak good or positive.
Oh yes,
and then some you had to be indifferent, and the other 3 pots you had to speak ill.
Like anger, jealousy, like I hate you.
And you could see the difference in the growth.
Isn't that amazing?
And I challenge this to anybody, like they can try it and see how sensitive plants are and how powerful our words are. So it's very important to speak to yourself with kindness and compassion, which of course one realizes much later in life. Isn't it?
At least for us, yes. That's been the journey. I'm so glad you brought that up because that is, I remember hearing about that. And it also, illustrates the interconnectedness of everything, which is, one of the principles of Buddhism, which I also follow quite closely. But your other question was what my parents said. So unfortunately, Aditi, at that same moment that my career started, my parents and I were involved in a very serious car accident in Canada. So this is what I mean. Like when I say literally, my career was literally accidental and off of the back of an accident. And so while I was in ICU, like picture this, you're in ICU day and night. I couldn't attend university. I was supposed to begin university then. So obviously, I'm sitting at my mom's bedside ICU, in the ICU. And then we would come home in the evening, just sleep for a few hours and go back. And then the phone would ring in the middle of the night. And it would be some Bollywood producer trying to find me. And when someone you love is in ICU and the phone rings in the middle of the night, you're just like, what has happened? And it was so confounding. It was so confusing what was going on. So my parents, in a sense, were, we were really, really tied up with this tragedy. But because I had modeled for Maureen Wadia, and because what I did was so successful, Maureen Wadia actually flew down to Toronto, met my parents, and convinced them to send me back.
Okay.
That's how my career started. My parents felt that it was probably healthy for me to get some distance. By that time, my mom was out of ICU. She had a long rehabilitation ahead of herself because she was paralyzed as a result of the accident. And they thought, just give her distance. Let her go off and have this adventure for 6 months and then come back and start university. That's how it all started. That was the plan. But as we know, God always laughs at our plans.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now coming to a little later, you were very well known. You were established. You did really good films, off track, offbeat, or arty films as they were called.
Arty films, alternative,
by choice. At that time, did you know that it was a conscious choice, or it was part rebellion, part let me not follow the conventional path kind of a thing?
Oh, it was very conventional. It was very intentional. It was very intentional. I didn't want to be part of mainstream Bollywood. I just, something inside me intuitively. Look, I love watching mainstream Bollywood films. I have a lot of respect for what they do. It is an art form in and of itself, I mean, I'm not here to dismiss it. It just wasn't for me. Like, again, everything about me. I grew up with a Bengali father. Just saying that, if anyone has a Bengali father, they'll understand what I mean. I grew up with Rabindranath Sangeet, and then watching Satyajit Ray and watching the great auteurs, Kurosawa, and all these people. We never watched conventional cinema. I had no reference point, actually,
Growing up,
except Mithun Chakrabarti, and Disco Dancer and all of that stuff. But, we would watch that for a laugh. And I couldn't help but feel that cinema can be used to influence people. It can be almost like a Trojan horse, right? You can embed a message in the entertainment. But at that time, it was really like, and it was so bifurcated, right? Like, either you were a conventional heroine, and even that had very strict rules around it, how you presented yourself, how you appeared, how you were perceived, or you were the unconventional or vamp or all of that. We forget that that's how it was for so long in Bollywood.
Yeah. And that was typecasted, right? That this was it.
And exactly, you take that one choice and then you're typecasted for the rest of your career. So I just felt like I don't know, I've just felt intuitively, if I went into the conventional path, being an introvert, being someone who needs space, I felt something in me would be extinguished. Like something very fundamental. I'm not trying to be poetic about it. I just knew it. Because even in my modeling career, I would get burned out and I would disappear for 6 months.
Yeah,
you must have heard that.
I was going to come to that.
Like, where did she go?
Suddenly Lisa Ray is not to be found. She disappeared. She's gone. Where did you go? Where did you disappear? Did you go back home, or did you go?
Home by then was Bombay. By then I had sort of found a home for myself. But what I would do, Aditi, in those times is I would go off on darshans. I would go off to the mountains. I used to go to Shirdi Sai Baba quite a lot. And I would just stay there for a week. So I was always seeking. I just wanted to know more and deeper answers.
When did the seeking start? Did it start with this whole being an accidental model? Or was it even earlier? Like, as a kid, do you think you were that? There were seeds there, or do you see that glimpse in yourself as you introspect, or was it later?
I was a very weird kid. I was I did not fit in.
Tell me more.
I did not fit in. I was an only child. I am an only child.
Yes.
So I spent a lot of time daydreaming in my head. And I feel all the richer for it, to be honest, because I have that independence. I need my alone time. I never feel lonely, but I need alone time. And I used to spend hours writing in a book. Writing always came very easily to me. It was how I expressed myself.
Do you still have those books?
I don't know, somewhere in the 100 times that we've moved, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some things I've kept. I'll have to dig it up now.
Maybe you should publish those.
Oh my God. It was just like slightly embarrassing though, of course, And I was also like this very serious child, very precocious, very dark. I started reading existentialist literature when I was like 8 or 9.
Wow. Okay.
Like, I was reading Jean-Paul Sartre, The Stranger.
At that age? Amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because that's all we had in our bookcase. That's what my father collected,
Right.
And so I was very dark. I would have to say. My parents, again, being of a mixed heritage, my mom was a lapsed Catholic. My father is a Hindu. We celebrated Durga Puja with much vigor, but that was it. Otherwise, they left me to my devices. They didn't impose any kind of system or worldview on me. Which is kind of also a bit disorienting for a child. You're like,
that's what I said
right?
to my dad. That you need to tell me to come home at 7. They never did that.
Oh, really?
Whereas other people, the families that I was surrounded with, they had strict rules. You have to be home before diya is lit, because at 7 they used to light a diya.
Yeah.
Then I would make up stories, and I'm like, no, I have to go back because my father will shout at me. They never put that fence, and I'm like, you need to put that fence around a child.
Give me some
then
discipline.
I built my own fence,
Yeah. That's really interesting. That's very unconventional, Aditi, no? Yeah.
So you didn't have that. You had to kind of navigate, even as a child.
I had to navigate those questions. And my mom, more than anything, was probably like an atheist, And my father was, quite he's a Hindu. And but, in the Bengali tradition, and again, it's about the goddess. So I was exposed to that. And when we used to spend a lot of time in Calcutta when I was growing up.
Did you have a difficult relationship with your mother?
I did. Reflecting back, I think we were too similar. I get my stubbornness from her. I get my, hard-headedness from her. And so again, you mix these two personalities together, and
there's always friction.
It's bound to be friction. My father, I'm very much a daddy's girl. Very close to him. But he's gentle, dreamer, you know what I mean? Yeah. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And my mom, actually, to give her credit, was the one who kept our lives running. She was very practical and very proactive. And I found that also, I have no memories of her until the accident and she was paralyzed. I have no memories of her being still. Like, she would not sit on the couch and watch something with us. She would not read a book, It's very different. But she grew up in Poland during, the communist era, and also,
and that shapes you, right? The way
that shapes you a lot,
your environment.
Exactly. And also Second World War, having a lot of lack. So now I understand. Where I hear sitting here today,
you don't know, right?
You don't know. My own daughters will do the same thing to me, I'm sure. Like, they won't understand as much.
How is your relationship with your daughters, Sufi and Soleil? And what beautiful names. I love those names.
Thank you.
How is your relationship? I mean, they are still young, but
they're still super young. It's, I think, touch wood, we have a really good relationship. I've realized now, because mothering is so complex and it's really hard to boil it down to anything. It's very personal.
And personal to each child as well, right?
Exactly. They tell you what they need.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. Like, because we've also we've actually moved so much since they were born. Like, they lived in 4 different countries by the age of 4. And even during COVID, we moved with them. But I remember, for instance, we were, for a brief period of time, we were living in a small little town in Western BC in Canada, just during COVID, so we could have some fresh air. And I put them in a very alternative school because this was my conception. I was like, I want them to be in a Waldorf school and there's no rules and it's play-led and child-led and all these philosophies, right? So we put them into a school there. They're baking bread and playing in the mud and all of that, very, very wholesome stuff. And I remember once coming and picking them up and they were napping, or one of my daughters, Sufi, was napping. And I woke her up. She was tiny. She was this tiny little thing. And I said, Sufi, are you okay? Are you enjoying? She said, Mama, I'm bored. I want to learn math.
That's amazing.
I was like, so clear about this is like, they're so clear.
Yeah.
So they taught me what they needed. I had all these preconceived notions, and I'll dress them in gender neutral clothes. That went out the window very quickly.
Oh, they
like the
colours?
frilly frocks and stuff
okay.
like that. So it's really such an embodied experience that you learn as you go along. But if I had to right now boil it down to one thing that is a non-negotiable, it's communication. I've realized that if my daughters trust me and feel always safe enough to come and tell me whatever is going on in their life, we're good.
We're good. Yeah.
We can manage.
Yeah,
we can get through things.
Yeah,
Now, of course, we still have not hit puberty.
Just wait for it. So what I have learned is that let them do whatever they have to do. They are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
They just need to know that when they make mistakes, you're not going to be judging them.
Yeah.
Or you're
That's
not going to be not there for them and put them down. I think that kind of sums up my, role as a mother right now. But of course, my children are grown up now. So.
But did you parent different from your parents? How
Of
your parents
course.
different?
Of course. So this is what I say, right? An alcoholic father has two sons. One will say, I drink because my father drinks. The other one will say, I will not drink because I saw what my father went through.
Yes.
It's a very personal kind of a situation with each child as well.
I know. Either you mirror or you rebel against, which is really interesting.
Like my daughter's a complete introvert. My son is a complete extrovert. So it's I had to navigate with both of them differently.
Of course.
And that's fine. You go with the flow kind of.
Yeah, we figure it out. And it's really interesting having twins though.
Yeah.
Because from that point of view, they have the same exposure, environmental conditions, the same, kind of style of parenting. And yet they are like from two different planets, my girls, They're so like not a little different. They're radically different.
Since you mentioned the C word, multiple myeloma, when you were diagnosed, it was a fatal illness. I remember reading your book when the.
Thank you for reading, by the way, Aditi.
Come on. I pre-ordered it. I pre-ordered it when I got to know. And I remember you writing about the doctor where you kind of took charge and said, "Do you want water?"
Yeah.
After that moment passed, what went through your mind? Did you ever question why me?
That's a fantastic question. And it does come up quite a bit because I do hear that that tends to be one of the primary reactions for a lot of cancer patients and a lot of people. Yeah. But for some reason, it never came up. What came up for me, Aditi, and I think you'll understand this, and I feel that this is like a beautiful forum to be able to express this because I don't always express this. It might be misconstrued or misunderstood, right? But there was just like a deeper knowing, a voice that said, it's okay. You're going to get through this. It's not going to be easy, but you're going to get through this. Number one. Number two, on a deeply intuitive level, I realized this was something that I had to face and go through. That it was connected with everything that came before. Like, I don't believe there's, again, the interconnectedness of life is also karmically in terms of actions and, and consequences. Karma, But this life, I had to clear something out. And this was kind of the culmination of that. And because I'd been studying Tibetan Buddhism before that, I could frame it through that lens, and quite easily as a philosophy.
Have you identified what it was that you needed to heal?
That, if you look at it this way, so the malignancy was deep in my bone marrow. It's very specific, the plasma of the bone marrow. It's the deepest part of your cell.
Yes.
Like, you can't get deeper than that physically. I was not living my life. I was not living my authentic life, what I had come to do. I had not brought all the disparate versions of myself together. And it was like life, the universe, God was forcing me finally, now is your time to finally step into what you're meant to do, who you are, without that fear.
Yeah.
And compromise, and compromising your voice, that's how I read it. I also read it like just, past imprints as well, because I believe in past lives. I believe that there was a culmination of everything coming to this point. And the Buddhists have a beautiful way of putting it. They say it's the ripening of karma. when the karma is ripened,
It's
it means it's ready to be picked. It's culminated. But the picking or the ripening, it doesn't mean that it's a pleasant thing. It doesn't mean it's a sweet thing. But it means you are ready to handle it. You're ready to sit with it, to face it. You're ready for it to be absolved,
But did all this that you shared right now go through your mind at that time, or this is a thought process that you have kind of assimilated through your journey of going through it,
looking back? No, fortunately, it did go through my mind at that time.
Oh, that's great.
It really did. So not to say that there wasn't fear, and then you have to be practical, and then you have to sort of organize my life. But I did have almost like this out-of-body experience, where I literally felt myself out of my body, feeling like, okay, this is okay. I'm going to get through this. And now, let me take the steps. Let me go through this particular journey. And as I said, it doesn't mean that there wasn't fear, but there wasn't such an overwhelming fear that there should have been. And that's what surprised, for instance, that oncologist when he diagnosed me. It's almost like I could feel it. I could feel what was coming. And I think, Aditi, there's another side of it. I think that, again, this can be misconstrued, but I believe we have a higher self, right? We have another version of ourselves. We have our higher self that has made a kind of a contract.
Yeah.
A contract before we come into this life of, what we're going to go through generally, how this life is going to pan out. So I believe my higher self had made a contract to, go through this particular experience and come out the other end. And that just kept coming out on an intuitive level. So
do you think that helped you navigate through this? Because like I said, back in the day, 2008, right? That's when the diagnosis happened.
2009. Yeah.
2009. At that time, multiple myeloma did not have the treatment that it has today, which is far, it's progressed so well.
Yeah. It was a scary disease. Yeah. It was a scary disease.
So when you went through that fear or that, the down, you go through that, right? That ups and downs
of course.
And emotional trauma that one goes through. When you were out there, like completely darkness, when darkness surrounded you, what was it that brought you out? Did you seek help from your friends, family, or was it you? And that's okay, because a lot of people, when you say that, no, I was the inspiration, people look at you like, that's a little self-centered kind of a statement.
Right,
but
yeah.
An introvert person will understand this. That,
yes.
You derive it from. But at this kind of diagnosis, sure, you need external support.
You need community. It was a big learning, and that's the thing. I learned so much through the experience of living through cancer. But the first thing that comes to mind of like, how do I get through it, is I was delusional as well. It's like a little bit of delusion goes a long way, Aditi.
So ignorance
okay,
is bliss.
I think it was okay, because that's literally what I did. While my father and my boyfriend at that time went to work researching multiple myeloma and coming up with all these scary statistics, I said, I don't want to know. Please don't tell me. Because I had set it in my mind that it's okay. No matter what the statistics are, no matter what, even if a doctor sits in front of me and says, okay, this is it. I don't believe it. It's just not the signal that I'm receiving, And I had to be a little bit delusional, a little like in a healthy way. No, because the doctor literally had told me you have 5 years and here's, showed me statistics and data and all that stuff. Maybe he felt he was being helpful. I'm not sure. But I just literally, like my psyche left the room when he started doing that. It wasn't helpful for me. So I kept myself in a healthy kind of a mind space where I was, positive and a little bit delusional, but obviously still aware that I have to go through this difficult journey. So that was one thing that comes to mind. I was so independent to a fault up until then. Like for some reason, I had this toxic independence, to be honest, where I felt it was a sign of weakness to ask for help from anyone. And that's how my life had played out from the age of 16. I'm sure you can relate to an extent, right? And
but I'm going to stop you. Sorry, I'm stopping you here. But A lot of this kind of conditioning comes from some incident or the other
Yeah.
from your childhood. That, okay, I will now not ask for help,
Mhm.
perhaps because at that time you asked for help and you were insulted.
Dismissed. Yeah.
Was there any such incident that you can think of?
I can't think of anything specifically, but I know that it's also just being an only child, I think. It came down to being an only child. I did carry a lot of fear of rejection and failure with me since being an only child. I wanted to be like a super achiever in certain ways.
Because you felt the responsibility of...
I felt the responsibility of my parents, even though I took somebody's expectations, and later on when I actually spoke to my parents when I was older, it turned out that they never put those expectations on me. So I'm not sure where exactly it came from. But I also know it was kind of like a cultural phenomenon, being an immigrant from an immigrant family. It was kind of a thing that happened. Mixed child, immigrant family, to be a super achiever. Somehow that was the expectation. And it could have been a cultural thing.
Did you ever fail as a child? Maybe not like a fail as in big failure or anything, but like a small thing which you took to heart. Because why I'm asking you this is because I remember going through this. For me, I wanted to be like I used to stand first in my class. I had to win in everything that I participated or did. So I was the biggest pressure on myself.
And that turned out to be the same thing with me.
Then in one of the tests, I got 49 on 50.
Oh.
And my father said, "Where did the 1 mark go?" And to me, that was like a slap on my face.
Yeah, that would be.
Where did it go? And I went crazy thinking about it.
Yeah.
I never said anything to anybody after that. But I knew that was a turning point for me. I'm like, I can't afford to lose 1 mark. And I was first in my class and I scored the highest. But that 1 mark never left me. So that put a lot of pressure on me.
That is so interesting.
So that's why I
absolutely.
You to delve into
I can't think of any one incident like that because my parents, frankly, again, my parents never put that huge pressure of marks on me. I put it on myself.
Yeah, neither did my parents. They never expected me to do medicine.
Yeah.
They never said that you have to. It was me.
Where does this come from, Aditi?
I don't know.
Like, I am really thinking about it. Where does it come from? I don't know, but we're, in similar age groups.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was also our generation. Sometimes
no, it's not. Because I know my friends and they couldn't care less. They're like, oh, we passed. Okay, great. Let's party. Let's enjoy.
Good for them as well. It took me years to figure out that. Yeah. Like, I call it the pathology of perfection.
That's a good term.
I think that it's kind of a perfectionist attitude that gets embedded and then comes out in different ways. Like, it can come out in academics, but it can also come out like, I can admit now openly that, throughout my 20s when I was that young model, the thing is, okay, you're a model, yes, but I had to be the best model possible. I had to be the most patient. I worked the longest hours, uncomplaining. If I was sick, they would send a doctor to the set and he would give me a injection and I would continue. Like, that was my way of expressing that perfectionism. I had to be good. And also I was very competitive with other models. I had very crap female relationships when I was in my 20s because every other girl was competition.
Yeah.
And I can admit that openly now. I couldn't admit it before. A lot of my friends were males, I just naturally would let down my guard with them, I found female relationships really difficult because of that.
But also to connect the dots. Coming to your relationship with food, since we did speak about anorexia and bulimia a little earlier on, did that change? And if so, how? Was cancer one of the transforming moments to say that, okay, nutrition is something that I need to look at?
Yeah, for sure. And on so many levels, cancer really also rid me of the pathology of perfection. Because I was on heavy steroids, which is one of the protocols, I gained 40 pounds. And it was in that particular body that I made the announcement, a very public announcement that I had cancer, and it was from a red carpet. And so that kind of addressed all of my insecurities. I think also, for sure, I had always viewed food through the lens of it being almost like something that's dangerous, right? Through an unhealthy lens. And then...
And did that start when you started modeling, or was it even as a child?
I think a little bit before that as well. I was a very chubby child. I was very, very chubby. I was quite overweight. And then I started slimming down in my teens. And also, look, we were exposed to like Jane Fonda and like all these mad kind of, also weird beauty standards, even back then, that were very toxic. So, I had a very bad relationship with food. Even though I love food, I actually enjoy food. I like eating. Like some people are not, it's okay. They're neutral. But I enjoy food. I enjoy flavors. For me, food also represents love. That was my mother's way also expressing love. So coming around a table. And so cancer rid me of those attitudes because I started seeing food as healing. Hippocrates, of course, famously said, let food be thy medicine. And I realized that the real journey with cancer began after I left the hospital. And that was a real healing journey because you're out of crisis, but how do you rebuild yourself? Healing begins once you start rebuilding. And that's when I understood I have to make lifestyle changes. I have to address food. And I started educating myself on it. It's such a crime and a tragedy that we are not educated on basics around our body, our nutrition. I mean, today, fortunately, there's a lot of information out there. 2009, there even wasn't that much information out there. But also the information that's out there right now can be very overwhelming.
It can.
And it cannot be, and maybe
paradox
it's not
of choices.
the paradox of choices. And maybe it's not personalized towards you. We have all of these people online who are yelling like magnesium, protein, like fiber. And you're like, what do I do? How do I do it? Put it all together in one smoothie, right? But I did end up going to a place when I relapsed called the Hippocrates Health Institute. And so I took that transformation very seriously. I educated myself about nutrition. I was on a raw food diet, actually, when I relapsed. And even though I elected to go on the maintenance therapy and I went on the raw food diet and made all these other adjustments, holistic adjustments, both of those in tandem put me back into remission without having to go through a second transplant. So I don't know where exactly the credit lies, and I don't think that's important, but I do believe in like a integrative approach, let's say,
I think it's a mindset that you can give credit to.
Could be.
So you made a lot of lifestyle changes, you said. Relationship with food was one. Is there anything else that you kind of took a 180 degrees change to say that, okay, this is something that is gone out of my life?
Many things. Also the power of community. I sort of wanted to circle back to what we were discussing before about what cancer rid me of. Being so independent to a flaw. After I was diagnosed with cancer, I understood the power of community because, after announcing my diagnosis publicly and then writing about it, I received such an outpouring of support. And I realized that how do you get help unless you ask for it?
Yeah.
It's a very simple equation, but for somebody who's very independent and introverted, it's a tough obstacle. But a switch went off. Yeah. And so really I think the power of community is magical in everything. And I've really tapped into that very enthusiastically and wholeheartedly since that, because, I really try to use my platform for that, whether it's talking about cancer and now talking about midlife or talking about just about anything, even surrogacy, I'm relatively fearless about putting it out there now.
So when you decided, that one moment, decision is always a moment, right?
Yeah.
The prelude is long, could be, but that decision is, that momentary thing. From being who you were to deciding to be vulnerable in front of the whole world, that takes a lot. When and how did that happen?
The pressure had built. I feel like I was like, it's like the pressure cooker analogy, So much pressure of living, as I said, these two separate lives that couldn't come together. Feeling judged, feeling like, I'm not able to authentically express myself and, and keeping all these balls in the air. All of that pressure had built up until the cancer diagnosis. And I think that was the tipping point. It was like literally the whistle went off. And also sitting and ruminating, reflecting, because as much as I had spent time meditating, in general, I still was stuck in a pattern of constantly distracting myself through work, right? So I never gave myself that time to ruminate. Like I was ruminating about spiritual things, but the more deeper practical things, it was still very tender inside me, to look at my own inner truth. Cancer stopped that. Cancer put like a full stop. You have to stop and you have no choice. You have no choice anymore. So when I stopped and faced these things, the pressure that had built up, and I was examining why was everyone, first of all, so fearful around talking about cancer openly. And secondly, why is there so much shame around it? I couldn't find an answer for that. And it really propelled me into saying, what have I done wrong? Why should I feel ashamed on top of everything I'm going through? And it was the shame that put me over the edge. The shame that was being handed to me by well-wishers around me at that time who they said, whatever you do, don't talk about it openly, get through it and all of that. And that just put me over the edge in the best of way. I said, I'm not going to take on your shame. The shame that really, like, where did this start, Aditi? Why do we carry around the shame about everything? Cancer, menopause, women's health, like
being a woman,
just being a woman. Where did this all start? It's tragic. And I just stopped and decided, no more. I'm going to put down this load now.
So that was a moment. And was there any supporter? Because you said there were many naysayers. However, was there anybody in your life at that time who said, go ahead?
There were some people who were very close to me. There were some people who knew me on such a intimate level that they knew that there was no stopping me when I set my mind to also do something. I was like, go for it. We support you. And as I said, something really magical happened when I shared that very vulnerable moment that I did not expect. I didn't know what the reaction might be, but it was simply this outpouring of support from strangers.
That
everyone.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful because that's when we realize, again, the interconnectedness, that we're all carrying around the same fear, the same shame, and that when we put it down, we recognize in each other so much more, otherwise we're looking at each other through this veil of fear. So that was a very beautiful moment.
Now, coming to surrogacy, as a woman, we are expected to be maternal. I know a few friends of mine who don't have that.
Sure.
Yet they're mothers and they make beautiful mothers. Not to take away from that part of it. When did you discover your maternal streak? When did you decide that, okay, I want to go ahead with surrogacy and have children? Because I know I've heard or read it somewhere that Jason was the one who said, I want to have children.
Yeah, that's right. It was my husband who was really pushing for children right from the beginning. And we got married very late in life. We were both 40. Not very, but whatever, again, standards, right? I have to catch myself. So we got married at the right time, let's say, for us. And clearly because of the maintenance therapy that I'm on for multiple myeloma, I can't carry children. I had never had any desire to have children before that. And I fortunately had this kind of notion in the back of my head that I said, because you can do it two ways, right? Either you can have children early in life and enjoy that process. And then maybe the other part of your life is dedicated towards yourself and growing and doing things that you're passionate about. Or I did it the other way around. I really dedicated myself to exploring life and the world.
And yourself.
And myself. And then getting married at 40, and then suddenly things started shifting. And for sure, cancer played into that. I think dealing with your own mortality, it really, you do an audit of what's important, right? And so it wasn't easy. I mean, there were a couple of times along the road, it was a really bumpy road where we thought like, let's just give it up. Like we have a great life. And to be honest, we were leading a great life. We didn't feel like a huge lack at that point. You know, we were in Hong Kong and whatnot and all of that. But I'm glad that we persisted. Something in me was activated. It was activated and it was meant to be. And I still remember being on a retreat. There were two things that happened that I think helped everything fall into place for us. Because as I said, it was a struggle. You know, we were going to do our surrogacy in India, and then India, the law banned it. And I didn't want to do it in a gray area, let's put it that way. And then we went somewhere else, another country banned it. So we were literally like, it was just like, it felt like all the doors were shutting. And I was like, what's going on? And I went on a retreat in Koh Samui. And I met a really wonderful spiritual healer there. And I was talking to him about it. And, you know, I sort of went into a session and I realized, and this is something very vulnerable that I'm going to share. I had had an abortion previously when I was very young. And I realized that I had not come to terms with that. I had not sat with that.
Unhealed.
I had not healed that. I had not taken permission to, you know. And in that session, that's what came out as being sort of a block also on a metaphysical level. And so we did a lot of healing around that. And I still remember after that, I dreamed of my children.
Oh my God.
So I don't have any other way of explaining it. After that, slowly everything fell into place in terms of the surrogacy. I actually get very emotional about it. But, you know, that's my approach towards life, you know. We live in the world. I can be very practical and grounded, but I believe that there's a lot more to this life.
Of
and,
course.
You know.
And we see so little with, you know, these two eyes. That's what I keep saying.
That's it. Yeah.
You know, we think we see it all, but we don't. We don't know so much more that exists, that is present. But
that's very refreshing for you as a trained doctor. You realize that that's not, again, the conventional point of view from a scientist or someone who's science-based and things like that, right?
But see, what I feel is, though I'm a doctor, energy is everything. It is.
Even Einstein said that at the end, right?
Yeah. So it has. I mean, the origins are all there. It's just that they've been covered and now we need to unravel it and put it out there to say that, you know, every science or every medical field has its place.
Yes.
Ayurveda has its place. Allopathy has its place. And so do other. It would be amazing to integrate them.
I know.
And get the best of everything so that we can improve ourselves. And similarly, where meditation is concerned, that brings me to Tushita. Am I saying
Tushita,
that?
yes.
Tushita meditation. Tell me a little bit about that. When did you start? How did you discover it? And what is it that you found in it that you said, okay, this is the path that I want to follow? To give you an example, like I have done many, I have also window shopped and experienced a few branches of meditation because there's so many.
Yeah, that's
and then I landed on Vipassana, and then that is it for me. Now I don't need to shop anymore because I found my path.
Yes.
Similarly for you, Tushita, meditation is the path that you have embraced, and that's what gives you what you need in life.
Absolutely.
So let's speak about that a little bit.
Yeah. So Tushita is a meditation center in McLeodganj up in Dharamshala, and it's has these wonderful beginners exposure to Buddhism within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the Mahayana tradition. So we landed up there in McLeodganj, and I just saw a sign on a pole that said 10-day silent meditation retreat. I didn't know anything about it, but something in me said, you have to do that. And it was very spontaneous. There was no forethought. And I'd come with a bunch of friends, but I said, listen, guys, I have to do that. Unfortunately, they're very tolerant and said, okay, you go off and do what you need to. We'll hang out. We'll see you on the other side. And so I went in. It was my first exposure to like sustained meditation, to sitting with your mind, to not running away from the mind, to, you know, and learning about a lot of Buddhist principles, the philosophy. And I went in for 10 days and I'll never forget. And I came out 10 days later and met my friends and they said, how was it? And I said, it was the most horrible thing I've ever done in my life and I need to go back. Because the first
Because,
time so much comes up. But it's medicine. And it's good medicine. And medicine can taste bitter sometimes.
Yeah.
So, on the superficial part of it, I was like, what's going on? But the deeper, the higher self or the deeper self or whatever you want to say, it was just like, you need this. And I ended up with Aditi spending 6 months.
Oh my God.
So I would go in for 10 days, I'd come back. I'd go in for 10 days. And, I kept taking the same course over and over and going deeper into it for myself and because it's not easy. A 10-day course, you can't say like, now I'm an expert in meditation.
No.
This is the one thing I find really annoying. I'm sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent about the wellness industry today. Someone takes a 200, hour yoga course and I'm a yogini. Okay, babe. Sure. Whatever you say, it's really annoying, right?
Annoying, yeah.
But anyways, I went in and out. And I started taking some other courses as well.
At the same place?
Yeah, at the same place. I just committed and I felt like I had come home. I really felt like I had come home. And I was shedding and shedding and shedding, and there were lots of tears, and there was a lot of release, and there was a lot of insights, there was a lot of realizations. And I literally felt at one point that I wanted to enter the monastery. Like I felt like this is it for me. I think I found my place in the world.
What is the biggest takeaway from all this movement?
That everything you need is within.
You have to go within to go without, right?
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Because, look, it's all been glamorous. I do, like, for instance, I loved Hong Kong a lot. And I think about those days in Hong Kong and all the glamorous parties and, walking through Central and exploring Soho and all of that. Wonderful. And I absorbed a lot. But, when I look back at it, I mean, a lot of it is now a blur. So what's the real takeaway? The takeaway was building a family while we were there. The friendships, the relationships, is not always the place.
Yeah. It never is.
It's never the place.
Yeah.
But,
if you're broken, you're going to be broken anywhere that you go, right?
Absolutely.
Now, the Lisa of today is talking a lot about menopause and midlife, and you're a crusader, I can say that. Tell us a little bit about that. Why did you embark on that journey?
Yeah, the midlife. Well, clearly because I am in my midlife, queenager era. It's come out of personal experience. First of all, when it comes to women's hormonal health and menopause. The one part of my journey that I never openly shared, as much as I was vocal about cancer, I did not share that chemo put me into chemo-induced menopause. And it was a secret that I carried, which was so bizarre because I was so open about so many other things. And I realized that, first of all, because there was no external support, including from the medical establishment, And I understand that the priority was to survive cancer. Yeah. So I understand that. There's no bitterness around it. But I was not offered HRT. I was not advised anything. I was advised, fortunately, to freeze my eggs. That was all that was told to me. And life took its own course. And somewhere I just kind of squashed it. And I realized that I felt a lot of shame. To, like, as a 37-year-old to say, hey, I'm in menopause. And it wasn't a part of conversation. No. It wasn't something that I would even discuss with my girlfriends. We never discussed this kind of stuff. And so I carried that with me. And I normalized a lot of symptoms. Like, I didn't sleep for a decade properly. I was waking up at 3 a.m. And like, I love my sleep. Everything was compromised. I still had a lot of mood swings. That my husband had to deal with. Now we can actually reframe a little bit for his benefit. So, there was a lot of things. In fact, one of the strangest symptoms that I carried with me for a long time was vertigo.
Oh, okay.
Extreme vertigo. I would just suddenly get a chakkar, and I privately was panicking. I thought, do I have a brain tumor? Like, what's going on? But turns out it was connected with, it was a symptom or was connected with all the hormonal decline. Anyways, so all this was going on, but I still had to inform myself a little bit. Then cut to, I was actually on a vacation with my friend Sujata Sumal, who we've known each other since we were 18 and we landed in Bombay. And we're in our late 40s. And she's starting to experience, I think, perimenopausal symptoms. And her symptoms were bad. She had suicidal ideation. She was depressed. Her mood swings were really, really difficult. And she thought she was going crazy, and there was no support. And I mean, Sujata is one of the most intelligent women I know and informed, and she's a journalist. And I said to her on that beach, do you think it's perimenopause? And she said that was the first time anyone said that to me. She'd been seeing doctors. Nobody said that to her. So I moved to Dubai, and Sujata's based in Dubai. We started having these conversations, and we started putting our conversations online. It was just like girlfriends having these conversations. So what had happened is all my girlfriends had caught up to, where I was. And because I had some experience with it, we were discussing it. And we started putting it online. Sujata also turned 50. She's a bit younger than me. And she started this series online called Your Prime Time. And that really resonated with me. And it came from a speech that Michelle Yeoh made, I think when she was accepting the Oscar, because she finally received an Oscar in her 60s. And she's a very renowned actress. She's done incredible work. And I think she said, ladies, don't let anyone ever tell you this isn't your prime time. And that little phrase actually, again, clicked inside me. Because, the culmination of everything, understanding my hormonal health, but stepping into myself, feeling comfortable in myself. Like I never had, like maybe I'd always secretly longed to my entire life, but it never happened. But happened with age, with in that sense, the simple biological aging actually kind of sorted things out. As much as there were a lot of challenges. I felt like, why are we not talking about this? Why? Especially in India, the reference point is like, oh my God, you become an auntie, budappa, decline, over your prime, irrelevance, all of this stuff. That is the cultural discussion around midlife women. And I was like, no more. This is BS. This is terrible PR, terrible branding. And, we all have a platform now to do something about it. That's where it started. And it's taken on a life of its own that I'm really, really happy to see. And the reason for that is because so many women of my generation, or even slightly younger, are also saying there's a lot of injustice. There's a lot of disservice in society. Because there are other women who are feeling like, but I feel so powerful, you're telling me to stop. But also on the other hand, just getting the support. Look, it's also deeply personal, how every woman wants to approach their midlife. You choose it. But the point is that it doesn't need to represent decline. You can have a quieter life. At the same time, as much as I'm like, rah, this is a powerful phase for me, I've also chosen a slower pace of life. That's been very intentional. I moved away from big city life because that's what works for me. So it's very individual, but a woman should understand what her choices are and that her choices are not shrinking in midlife. They're actually growing.
I think that should also be your choice.
Yes.
More choices.
Yeah, no, exactly. If you want to kick back, if you worked hard your whole life and you're like, I want to
make this choice.
Sit under a tree and have snacks. Okay. So be it. I will not judge you. If you want to go gray, fantastic. I'm contemplating it myself.
This was one of the reasons why I chose my capstone project in Harvard in 2021-22.
We were discussing that. So powerful.
To be menopause. I'm like, no, let's talk about it. And the topic is let's talk menopause.
Oh my God. I think we have to talk about this more and more and more. We need also your voice,
and one of the things that I have included in that program, one of the sessions is with the spouse and the family members.
Okay, good.
Because
so important.
It needs to be out there. People need to understand that she's not just being irrational or moody.
Of course.
It has a biological reason for it. She can't help it.
She can't help it. This is so important. I'm so glad you brought this up. We need, of course, more men included in the discussion because women, as we know, when they're equipped with the information, the resources, they'll do something about it. They will. Men, especially when it comes to women's health.
Yeah. 5%. You were telling me about the statistics. Tell us
Oh
more.
my God. So, I've obviously delved, deeper into this. And what is one of the reasons? It was bothering me. Why is there so little information and discourse on menopause? It's growing on social media, but I'm talking about traditionally within medical circles. And so many women were coming to me and saying, I went to my OBGYN and they said, first of all, don't do this, don't do that, just accept it. It's natural. And I was like, yeah, it's natural, but suffering should not be normalized. There are ways to reduce the suffering. And when I went deeper into it, I realized that loss of estrogen and other, progesterone and testosterone leads not just to your hot flashes and your this and your that and dry skin and all the vanity stuff, your bone health.
Cardio
your
health.
Cardio health.
Yeah.
It could be linked with dementia. Everything, all your systems are affected.
Yeah.
So effectively what's happening by a doctor saying, don't interfere, is you're creating frailty in women as they get older. And we don't need that.
It's half of your life, right? It is half of your life that you're going to lead in
Exactly.
the postmenopausal phase.
Exactly. So then I said statistically, first of all, I saw a statistic that said the total amount of medical funding for women's health issues, the umbrella of women's health issues, is 5% globally. Everything else is towards male biology.
And we're half of the population.
And we're half the population. And another thing that I very recently learned is that women were not legally included in medical research. I'm talking about through the United States, but let's face it, most of the medical research is centered in America. Women were not legally included in medical research until 1993.
My God.
Before that, everything, including medical dosage, was based on male biology. Like what a disservice towards us. I've had my own personal experience. I elected to go on HRT at 52. I've experienced great benefits. I'm not advocating HRT for everyone. Never self-prescribe when it comes to hormones or any of this, because it's a journey and everyone's experience is completely different. But what I would love to see is women asking for the right treatment, not getting dismissed, and knowing what all their options are. Maybe HRT is right for you, or MHRT as they're calling it, menopausal hormone therapy. Maybe supplements are right for you. There's many approaches, but you should not feel alone and don't feel guilty about asking for help. I mean, women have been dismissed too long. And as you said, Aditi, this is like still a significant portion of your life.
Half of your life.
Half of your life.
You better look after yourself, lift weights, take the supplements and ask for help.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I co-founded NuHer, which is a midlife clinic. And we specialize only in women's hormonal issues and midlife
so
issues,
awesome. That's amazing.
I'm really happy. Yeah. I'm honored to be a part of it.
I'm so glad
I'm honored just to have a safe space to talk and ask questions.
Yeah.
That's it, and not be dismissed.
Yeah.
And I think it's no coincidence that all of our specialists are women. No coincidence there. Yeah.
Last question. What is the legacy that you want to leave behind for Sophie and Soleil?
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, not only monetary or not only, holistically.
Yeah. They are my legacy. They're oh my God, I'm going to start crying actually. They're my legacy. And I just see them evolving and growing, and I want them to be strong and, have their voices be heard, express themselves, all that stuff. I just want them to go out there and be fearless in ways that I was not. I think it is a natural thing for a parent to see that their children reclaim spaces that I did not have, or to do things differently. New and improved versions of yourself.
Yeah.
That's my legacy, for sure.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God, Aditi, I got very emotional. We went on a beautiful roller coaster. But I love this. I mean, cheers also to you and all that you're doing.
Thank you.
I mean, aside from, I'm so happy for this conversation. And the last thing I wanted to say is that, I'm reflecting again on my kids. Like, there's something a phrase that I really enjoy that I picked up recently, which is, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Or if you can't see it, be it. So I hope that my kids will embody that. that they will
Yeah,
have the courage to be who they're
Mm.
meant to be in the world,
Mm.
even if they can't see it
Mm.
reflected back to
Mm.
them.
Well, they will have struggles, but I think that
They
is
have to
part of
have
life.
struggles. They have
That's
to
part
have
of life.
struggles. That's
the
why.
Venn diagram will exist, and at some point it will coincide. It will fall together. So
Yeah,
I'll pray for that.
definitely in your 50s.
Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.